Hi and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be creating this website design with the latest Figma, which is Figma 2025. And without wasting much of your time, let's get started. So to flow along with this tutorial, you have to get the starter project. I'll leave the link in the description below so you can duplicate this starter project. So looking at the starter project, we have the wireframe. So you can see here we have the navigation at the top, the hero section, the future works, the testimonials, and the footer. We also have website resources. Here we have the copies of the website. So this is to make our design very fast instead of typing the copies. And also we have the colors and we have the images that were used in this design. Now these images, some of these images I got them from Dribbles or Behance. So you can check out Dribbles or Behance to get these images. And also we have the style guide. Here we have the typography scale and we have the colors. So next we need to set up our Figma project for us to start designing. So right here on Figma, what I need to do is first I need to select the screen I'm designing for. So to do that, just select your frame here at the bottom and you go through the different sizes here. If you're designing for phone, you can use phone, tablet, you can use tablet screens, but I'm designing for desktop and I'm going to go with this desktop screen right here. So that's the first thing we need to do. And I need to rename this to what we're designing. So I'll say home page, or we'll call this portfolio homepage rather. Great. So the next thing we need to set up is the grid. Grid is very important because it helps us to align our elements in our frame. I'm going to show you how to set up this real quick. To set up the grid for your design, so what you need to do is go to the layout grid, click on the plus icon, and then you get this. So select columns because we're using column grids. We're practically designing for web. So web designs, we use a standard of column grids, and a lot of design systems use 12, like Bootstrap and Designs and the rest of that. So we're going to set this at 12 columns. Other thing I want to do is to set this to be stretch and margin to be 100. So the margin is the space between this, the white space between the column grids. You could say the space here and this space here. And the next thing is the gutter spaces. The gutter spaces are the spaces between each of this grid, this column grid. So I'm going to set this to 24. And that is it, how to set up your grid. So the next thing now is to set up our colors. It is very important to add your colors to style guide so that it will be easy for you to reuse your colors across every element in your UI design. So let's quickly set up the colors. So I'll go back to the resources. I could say I have these colors. I can then copy these colors and maybe I should have like a style guide. I think we have a style guide in the starter project. So I'm just going to drag this towards this point. So for the colors, I think you can group this on the starter project. Then we have 3 basic colors which we'll be using in the design. So the choice of this color is to just make it very elegant, bold. Your choice of color might be different based on your brand identity, but for this design I'm just using these basic colors for this design. So what I'm going to do here is to add each of these colors to the style guide. I could choose to call this black, call this gray, and call this light gray. So let me quickly show you how to add your colors to style guide in Figma. First thing you need to do is to select the color, and then once you do that, you hit on this apply to style guide and variables. And what you do, you just hit the plus icon and you give it a name. And let me say this style should be color, and I'll call this black. So I'm saying under colors, okay, let me just say under colors, we have black, which is this. So I'll create this style. Now what happens, you see this added to this particular rectangle shape. You could see the color black. And when you click out on the artboard, you could see your styles are being added. And you see the colors, when you drop down, you see the black. So we'll quickly add this to as well. Click on this, the same process, click add. I'm going to say colors / I'm going to call this gray. Create style, and what it means is when I click on the outer artboard, I can see colors. I can see black and gray, and the last one, which is light gray. So I'm going to say colors. I'm going to call this light gray. And we have the light gray. So we have our colors. It is very important that you set up your colors in style guide so that you'll be able to reuse them in any part of your design elements. Now, the next thing we're going to set up is the typography. We're going to set up this typography just like how we set up the colors so that we can be able to easily use them in our design. It makes our design look consistent across various UI design screens. So here we have the type scale, which we'll be using for our design. And to learn more about type scale, I'm going to drop this link in the description below. It's figma.com some best practices typography system in Figma. So you go through this and there you understand how to set up like your own type scale. So add this type scale to your styles in Figma, just like how we have the colors. We also want to have the typography. So what you can do is just select the text. Now you click on this styles at the top here and you click add, and then you're going to give it, let's say you're going to call this headings, and we have this to be heading 1. So I'm going to just copy this so that I don't have to retype the text. So I'll just click create style. I'll select this and also do the same thing. So headings, I'm going to rename this as heading 2. So I'll just quickly do for the rest of them. So now I'm done creating the text styles for the headings. You could see I have heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, heading 5, and heading 6. So I'll go ahead to also create the text styles for the paragraphs. So what I can do here is just select each of them and just click the plus. And I'm going to call this body. I'm going to call, or we'll call it paragraph. I'm going to call this big. And for this, I'm going to do the same. Copy, call this medium. And the last one, I'm going to click this, add, and call this small. Great. So now we have our page and the grid, and we also have the colors and as well the typography. The next thing I want to look is the icons. So I use Iconly for my icons. This is a icon pack that's really pretty. So if you want to have access to this pack, also I'll leave the link in the description. It's a paid icon pack. There are other free icon packs out there. There's one for Google, there's one for Material Designs. Just find the icon pack that suits you. But if you have this project starter file, you're going to have access to the icons which I have already in this design. You can then actually use these icons. But if you feel like you want to have access to the full icon pack, I'll leave a link in the description and you get 20 to 30% discount when you buy using my referral link. Now we have our icons, grid, colors, and our typography setup. Then we can start designing. Now the first thing I'm going to start with is the navigation. So looking at our copies right here, I can easily just copy this, which is the name of the person. That's what we're going to be using as the logo. So I'm going to place this here. I'll make sure that it is auto width. So I'll take this at the top here. And now for our style settings, for the text, I can just easily just select from the style, and this is a paragraph, right? So I'm going to make it medium, and now this is the essence of the grid. The grid allows us to align things towards the lines in the grid system. Now the next thing on our design, we want to have each of these links. So I'm going to take this up here and I'll paste it in my design. So what I'm going to do is drag this somewhere here and drag this somewhere here and also drag this somewhere here. So I'm going to select the 3 of them. Make sure you select the 3 of them and then you add auto layout to it. So to add an auto layout, you can right click and say add auto layout, or you use Shift A in the keyboard to add auto layout. So auto layout is a kind of frame that helps group your items together, but it has some special properties. And these are the special properties. You could change the direction of the auto layout. I'll make more detailed videos about this. Just stick to the channel, subscribe, and you get to learn all of this. Quickly, I just added the auto layout. This is the spacing between each of the elements in the auto layout. These are some of the functions that the auto layout helps us to achieve. So I can make the spacing between each of these, let's say for example 32, and I can set it to be centered align, which is this. If I set it to be top align, you are going to see some difference, but you're not seeing that right now. Okay, let me expand this and set it to top align, centered align, and bottom align. So, but I'm going to set the height of this auto layout to hug the element and the width as well to also hug the element. And I'm going to set this to be left align center. So that's it about the links. So we'll make sure that the text style as well is also what we want. So I'm going to select from the the text style, which is the typography, and I'm going to set this to be medium. Now for the colors, I also set this to the black color, which we have on our style guide, and also select all of this and make sure that the color is also the black color. So that's how easy it is for us to like choose our colors and choose our style for our text. So I can easily turn off this grid system by selecting this and go down here and say turn off, and you see what we have right now. I can turn it on and turn it off and see what we are working on. Or you could use Shift G in the keyboard to turn it on and off as well, which works well for you. You can use that. So the next thing I want to do is to design a button. So I can take one of this text, copy this text and paste it somewhere here. And so for the button text, the copy of the button text, I think we have the copies already. I think this is it. So I'm going to take this copy rather than typing it. So I'm going to paste that real quick into here, and I'll take this here. So I'm going to change the color to match our style guide, and then the text as well, I'm going to change it to medium. Right now I can detach this. I can remove the style that is already attached to this, and that way I can then change the width to either regular or medium or semi-bold. So I want this to be bold, and then I'll change the color to black, which is already on black. So the next thing I want to do, I want to add an auto layout to this. So I can easily just select add auto layout. The auto layout has been added. So one of the interesting thing about the auto layout is that it's going to help you with some features like adding padding around your elements in the auto layout. So I'm going to do that right now. So what I would do is the padding from the left and right, which is this and this, I'm going to set it to 18. And for the top and bottom, I'm going to set it to 12. So these are some of the features of the auto layout. Like the last one we discussed, which is on this, we talked about the spacing between the both of them and the alignment, whether center top. Now we're looking at the spacing around the element, which is now the top padding, left padding, right padding, and the bottom padding. Another thing you could use the auto layouts to do is to add background colors. So I can use our style guide to choose a background color, and this is interesting. And I can change the color of the inner text. So if you look at this auto layout here, you could see there's frame and text. So what I'm going to do is I'll select the text and I'll change the color to white, which is the lighter gray. The next thing I can do is to add corner radius to this button, which I'm creating. So the corner radius I'm going to add to this button should be 16. So what I can do is look at make sure you're selecting the top frame, not the text inside the frame. So once you select that, just come down here, you see what we'll call corner radius. So I'm going to set this 16. So one other thing I want to do so my button will stand out is to add like a shadow around the button. So shadow helps us to elevate elements in our design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and select add effect, and this is a shadow. So I'm going to set some property to be -2 and set the Y to be 2 as well. Then set the blur to be 8 and let it spread 4. So I'm not able to use this spread feature because this frame is not clipped. So what I can do is I clip this and then go back to my shadow, and I'll set the spread to be 4. Now for the color, right, I'm going to use the picker tool to pick this color. And then I will set the transparency or the opacity to be around 20. And we'll have this cool shadow effect around the button. Having gotten this, I'm going to be reusing each of these buttons in my design. So, but I don't want a situation where I'll decide to change any content of this button. I'll have to go back. But in the next video, I'll show you how to do that. For this video, we're talking about design. The next video, we'll talk about component. And that is why you need to subscribe to this channel, so that I'll walk you through the various processes which you need to know as a UI UX designer. And one of the important things you need to know is using components. So we'll talk about that later on in our design. So now we have the button. So I can just select each of this and add Shift A, which is the auto layout on it. And then I'll turn on my grid, which is Shift G, and I'll make sure this snaps to the grid here. And you can see that the button did not move in because each of the spacing was fixed spacing. I'm going to change it from this fixed spacing to auto spacing. So anytime I drag this, and this helps for responsive design. I'm also going to talk about responsive design later on in this channel. Now we have this, we can turn off the grid system and we have this really nice. Now I want to check the spacing at the top. So it's advisable to use a spacing of, let's say, 4 pixels or 8 pixels. So if you're using 4, then you make sure you go with multiples of 4. If you're using 8, you make sure you go with multiples of 8. So I'm going to be using 4. And if you look at what we have, using the alternate key on Windows, or you use the option key on Mac, you're going to see at the top right here, you see once you hover around an element, you're going to see the spacings around it. I remember when we set the grid, we set it the spacing, the margin to be 100. So the spacing at the top here, I'm going to set it, I move this with my arrow key up and down. I'm going to set it to 48 pixel. Good, we have the navigation. The next we're going to look at is the hero section. So for the hero section, I'm going to take this image right here into this hero section, and I want the image to be right here. And I have a copy as well, which is the name of the person, which is Mohammed. I'm going to take this Mohammed and then paste it here. So the essence of this design is to have the name at the middle, very big, and have the image on top of the text. So for this text now, what I'm going to do is to select the style guide, and I'm going to select heading 1, and heading 1 will give me that thing I'm looking at. So for this image, I'm going to remove the background of this image, and I will make sure that the image is on top of the text. So what I'm going to do first, I forgot to rename each of this. So let's do that. As a UX UI designer, one of the things that stand you out from other designers is renaming each of your layouts, because it helps when you have to do design handoff. So I'm going to name this. This should be the logo. So let's quickly name this logo. And this should be the links. Each of them should be a link, or we'll say text link or something. So just make sure you name them. And this should be your button. Correct. So for this now, this should be hero text for this hero text, and this should be hero image. So to remove the background, I can use other tools like Photoshop or Remove Digit to get this background out of this image. But I made a video about the top AI features which I use, and one of them is the remove background. I'll keep a link to the video here so you can watch it later after you're done with this. You can watch this video and learn those top AI features I use. So I'm going to be using one of them, which is the remove background. So to remove the background, what I can do using the AI is to click here and make sure this design file is not on your draft. It is added to a project file in Figma. So I'll just click on this and say remove background. And that's interesting. The background has been removed with the AI. So if you look at the text and the hero image, so I want the text to be beneath the hero image, and I can easily just increase this by holding my shift and dragging this image this way, and we should have something like this. So you could see now I can crop this and select this as crop, and also I can crop this way and close the crop. So I can easily select the text and select the image. So I want this image to be centered aligned, and cool, we have this. So at the top, I'm going to select this and make sure that the spacing at the top is around 4 pixels. Let's use 32. That's really cool. Or we could use 56. Let's use 56. Really cool, 56. And we could take this image down a little bit above the ear, and we could use our alignment to make it center. And here we go, we have something like this, really nice. So the next thing I want to do, let's look at the copies. We have availability for work, and it's currently available for work. So I'm going to paste this here, and we have, let's say, what should be the size we're going to use. So the available size should be like around 16. So we're going to use medium, yeah, and we're going to use auto layout Shift A. So the essence of the auto layout is kind of to give us those properties like the spacing and the padding thing we talked about. So I'm going to use a padding of 24 left and right, and for top and bottom I'm going to use a padding of 8 pixel. So let's set this, instead of 4 we're going to set it 8 pixel. Then we add a color. I'm going to set the light color. Yeah, this looks really cool. And I'm going to set a corner radius of, let's say, 100. Let's set this to 100. Yeah, this is really nice. Let's add like a notification icon that will draw attention. That will quickly just select this, and I'll drop this here. We're going to set the height and width. So I'm going to click this lock aspect ratio. When I click lock aspect ratio, if I change the height, the width will also change. I'm going to set it to 16, and I'm going to drag it in here. Now the spacing between both the text and the notification icon, I'm going to set it to be 4. Let's set it to 12, and then the color, I'm going to paste the color code here, and the color is 007. I'm going to add this color to the color code here in our design, so you guys can also use that later on in your project. So I just added that. So I'm going to add some couple of text to the hero section, 1 and 2. We're going to select both of them. I'm going to copy that. So this will stand as the hero text, and this will stand as the sub hero text. So this is properly named as image. This I'll call this notification icon. I always check out for my naming notification icon. That's the text. So this is badge. I'll call this availability badge. And we have this properly named as image. So I'm going to call this hero text. and I'm going to call this hero subtext. Now I'm going to add both of this into an auto layout so I can manage the spacing between the both of them. So for the first one, I'm going to set this to be, let's say, heading 2, or let's say heading 3. Let's use heading 3. And yeah, this is heading 3. And this, I'm going to set it to paragraph big. So let's just set paragraph big. So I'm going to select both of them and strategically put it at the center here. So I'm going to increase this to this point. Yeah, and the spacing between the both of them, I'm going to set the spacing between the both of them to 8. Then the next thing I need to do is to add a button as well. So I'm going to copy the button I have at the top, and I'll bring that button down here. And the content of this button should be "Let's talk." I'm going to increase the size of the button a bit so it looks really cool. Now I want this to be on top of this image. One way I could do this is, since I have an auto layout, I can set the auto layout to be center, and then I can increase this, but that way the text as well increases. So what I can do is, right, I can set this is hero text plus sub text, right, and I'll add another auto layout on it, right. So I'll call this one container. Now I'll add the spacing. Okay, let's just turn on the grid, and I can drag this to this point, right? I can drag this to this point, and I can as well drag this to this point. Now for the container, it spans around the column grid, but for the text and the subtext, I'm going to reduce that. And once I'm done reducing that, I'll set the container, right? The spacing left and right should be 0. Top and bottom, we can set the top and bottom to, let's set it to 40, right? And then we can set it to be centered, align. I can add a color to this so it will be able to stand out. So let's just add this gray for now, and turn off the grid system to see what we'll have. So I'm taking this up here a bit to the chests. Let's say down here. Something. The next thing I want to do is to take the button tool and select this, and since this is just having both the text and the subtext and also the button, I'm just going to call this as well a container, and I'll paste the button in. So for this container, right, the inner container, you can use the word inner container, right? Makes a lot of sense. I'm going to set it to be left aligned, so the button will be left aligned. The spacing between the button and this should be like 16. So I will select this button, or I'll add both the hero text and the subtext. I'll add it into a frame as well, Shift A, and I'll set this, I'll say hero text plus subtext, right? And then what I can do for this is 8. Then for the inner container, I'm going to set the to be 16, so we have space between the button, or you could set it to be 24 as well. Yeah, so you have some space between this. Now to make this more visually appealing, so what I can do is, selecting this container, I can say the radius of the top right and the top left are around 56. Drop down this, right, and the top left should be 56, and the top right to be also 56 as well. This is looking so pretty nice right now. So I can bring this down here a bit. Now, one other thing I want to do is I want to add an effect. So I'm going to say, let's add this effect of noise. Yeah, pretty cool. Having this effect of noise just makes your design a bit different from the generic design. So you could play around all of this to see what the noise look like. So, but for the color, I'm going to pick the color of the button. And remember, I'm going to set this to 15. It's a bit difficult to read the text, the black text. So I'm going to change this from light gray. I'm going to just give it complete white. And I'm going to drop down the opacity of the white to like say 90. Yeah, cool, interesting. So right now I can increase this image by holding Shift and dragging to this point. Let's say this point, and this is 40. So I'll just do some cleanup, set this to be center and this to be center as well. So we have the hero section design. What do you think about this design? Let me know in the comment section. And if you're really enjoying this video, make sure you like, share, subscribe, or give me a thanks. So let's work on the next section, which is the feature section. So what I need to do now, let's look at the copies. So we'll take the feature section, copy the text, come here, paste. So let's take this down here. So I'm going to set the text to heading 4. Yeah, nice. and then set the color to black. For the feature section, I also have a button that says see all feature section. So I'm going to paste this button here, and I'll bring this here. For the color of this button, I'm going to be using the light gray. Then the text color should be black. We'll call this all works. Then I'm going to as well be removing the effects on this. And then looking at our icons here, I'm going to be picking one of this icon, which is this. Copy, and I'll come here, and then I will immediately paste the icon here. The spacing between them, I'm going to set this to be 12 spacing. You could set this to 16, whatever you want to set it. And let's set it to 8. Yeah, so we have this. Now I'm going to turn on the grid line, and I'm going to set this to start from this point, and this to also start from this point. I'll turn off the grid line. So I have the features, and one of the things you want to show on the feature section of feature works is the best work you have done so far. So I'm going to pick some of these images, and I'll just paste this image here. So I have one of this image. So we're going to take the next image. We could take this one, duplicate, Command D, take it in here, turn on the grid line, and as well do the same thing. Snap to this. You could see now we have a problem, and the problem is that looking at this and this, you could see that this image is taking larger height compared to this image. So you want them to snap to a particular height. So what I can do is I can bring this down. Let me increase this. I'm going to duplicate this, right? And let's turn on the grid line. Starting from here. Nice. So I'll right click on this, right? And I'll say frame selection. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the image inside, and we'll have the frame. I'm going to call this frame image. So when I look at this image, or this image rather, you can just come to the fill property, and then you copy. Select this, and you do Control V. So use Command C to copy and Command V to paste. So I'm going to bring down this, and I'm going to duplicate this, Command D. I'm going to drag it towards this point. Then for the image, I'm going to select the image on the fill, select this image, and say Command V. You could see the two images here. I can remove this for second one. So I'm going to delete all of this. And I'm going to duplicate this too down here. So you imagine, because of our gutter spacing, right? You could say, let's take this way and make sure that they snap. You could see the spacing between the both of them should be around 24 because of our gutter spacing. And this should be the same thing if they snap to the grid line. Make sure they snap to the grid line. Yeah. Select the both of them, make sure it's 24. So I'll turn off the grid line. So what I can do is just select the other images, copy the fill, paste it on here, and also copy the fill for this, and paste it here as well. So I'm going to remove this second fill, which was from these ones we copied, and we're going to add some corner radius around. So let's just select the 4 of them, and we'll use a corner radius of 24. So I'm going to select all of these. You can use frame selection, or you could use group, or you could use auto layout. I'm going to use Shift A, which is auto layout. And I'm going to use, so right now, if we just snap to the auto layer, you could see that it has selected this horizontal auto layout, but you could use the better grade, which is the best. So you could see 2 by 2, so 2 at the top, 2. So if you keep adding more stuff, it will keep arranging based on 2 by 2, right? Which is the better auto layout to use. And the spacing between the both of them, you could say I'm using 24. So I'm going to call this the grid image. And then we'll select this and add into auto layout. I'll call this row, call this a row, and snap these two together with auto layout. I'll call this container. And the spacing between the both of them, I want to be using 64. And I think 64 is a bit big, so let's make it 48. Cool. So I have this right here. Then the next thing I want to do is, I'm looking at this, right? We have not done the hover effect. Maybe when we start doing the prototype, we'll show you how to do the hover effect. But right now, we're just doing our design. And let me know what you think about design. I think it's looking pretty cool right now. So the next section we want to look at is the testimonial section. So let's look at the copies for the testimonial. Let's say testimonial, okay? So I'm going to copy this. So the testimonial section also have something similar to this. So I'm just going to copy this and then paste somewhere in our design. So I'm going to bring this down here. So the copies for the testimonial, and then let me say, I'll just copy this and I'll replace this here. So for the testimonials, it has some icons, and I think it's this two icons. So I'm just going to copy this two. And I'll just paste that here and use auto layout on them. So I'm going to use the arrow key on the keyboard to move this to the left. So the spacing between these two should be around 16. So instead of auto, I'll set it to 16. And I'll set the width to be hug. And we'll have this. So I'm going to delete this button. So we have this for the testimonial, and the spacing at the top between each of these to be 112. So what I will do is to bring down this a bit to 112, make sure it's 112. And this as well, I'm going to do the same thing, make sure it's 112. And remember I said multiple 4, that's what I'm using. So we have the testimonial section. So let's turn on the grid line and make sure that everything snaps to the grid line. Correct. Let's see for this as well. Nice. Turn off the grid line. And the next thing is to do the testimonial section. So I have something like this. So these are the testimonials. So I'm just going to copy the copies. I'm going to increase this a bit and paste these copies here. So for the first testimonial, which is this, I'm going to bring down this. For this first testimonial, I'm going to select each of them and add auto layouts to it. I'll call this testimonial. Sorry about the spelling. I'll call this testimonial. So we have our first testimonial. So I'm going to set it to this point. And then I'm going to look at it. We have an icon at the top. So this is the testimonial icon. So I'll just really quick pick that in and put it in as well. So the icon should be at the top. So I'm going to do the same thing for this other person. So copy the text, replace the text, and the name and the person who left the testimonial. So we're going to delete that as well. And I'm going to really do that for the last person. So duplicate this and the last person. So I'll take the copies and this, just copy, paste, and then delete the other ones that was there. And then make this to be fill container. So it fills the container as well. As well as this, I'll make it to be fill container as well. So I'm going to select the 3 of them. These are individual testimonials, right? I'm going to select the 3 of them, add an auto layout on it. And I'll turn on the grid line to make sure that they snap to the auto layout and this as well. Then the spacing between each of them, I'll make it 24. Then I'll make sure that each of the testimonial is fill container. And let me delete this and turn off the grid system. So right here we have this as fill container. One thing we also missed out is the image of each of these persons that made the testimonial. So we'll quickly go to this image. So I want the image size to be just like what we did with the images here. So I'll make it to be in frame. So just select your frame. And your frame should be 40. Snap this and make it 40. So I'm going to take each of this image. So I'll just copy and select our frame, which we made 40. This frame should be testimonial image. So I'm going to paste it as a fill right here. And the curve, which is the corner radius, I'm going to set this to 8. And let's just set it all around 8. So we have the testimonial. I think this is for the first person. I'm going to paste this here. And for the second person, so let me just quickly take all of this in here and here as well. So the next thing is get this image. So I'm going to copy the fill. Make sure it's the fill you're copying, not the image. Select this and paste it. And you could do remove the second image. You could do some alignment, set this to crop, and you can take this down a bit. Then for the last person, I'm going to copy this. And then select this. And make sure you're make sure you're copying the fill image. And I'm going to set this way and paste it. And I'm going to remove this. Cool. Let's be sure that that's the names for each of them. No, I think this should be here. And I'm going to take this here. That's cool. So one thing I want to do is write the text settings. And also let's look at this text settings. There's what we call visual hierarchy. This should be more darker than this. So I can change the color to the other gray here. So we have like a text hierarchy. This is more like it. So we're going to do that here as well. We'll set some text hierarchy if possible, right? Now for the founder's name, for the name, we're going to use, let's say, size 18. So let's use our typography. Sorry, we're going to use our typography big. And let's do that for this and this. I'm using Shift to highlight multiple, Control and Shift. So I'm going to set this to big, right? And this, I'm going to set this to small. Small. And I'm going to change the color to gray. For this, I'm going to change the color to black. And for the text, we're going to also change the colors as well and use the black colors. And for the icon, we're going to do the same thing. Make sure we're using our colors black. We're good. Now, what I want to do here is we're going to set a padding around each of this. So the padding around each of this text, the essence of the padding, we want to create a card-like design. So we'll make the top and bottom to be 32. Top and bottom 32. Left and right should be 24. Cool. Now the next thing we want to do is I want to add this name into an auto layout, and the direction should be horizontal direction. Sorry, should be vertical, right? And I'm going to select the image and this as well. I use Shift A on it. And I'm going to change the direction to be horizontal. So I'm going to set this way. And the spacing between these two, I'm going to remove the spacing. So no spacing at all. So we can remove the style guide here, and we can set this from regular. We can set it to, let's say, medium. Let's do the same for all of this. So remove this, set it to medium. And what I can do, after I've added the auto layout on this two, I can set this to be centered align. So to reduce stress, what I can do is to copy this, select this, and paste it in. Sorry, I'm going to select this option. So I'm going to call this the person. So the person has the testimonial image and, let's say, the details, right? So under the details, we have the name, and I will have the job title. So I'm going to copy these details, and rather I'll copy this person, and make sure that the contents are hug with as well few containers. So I'll just copy this and I'll paste this here and paste this here just to remove the stress in doing this for this. So what I can do is just copy the text and replace this, and just copy the text and replace this. Then I'm going to delete this text and then copy the image, paste it into this, change the position of the image and delete the other one. So we can then delete this. For this as well, copy the image and paste it here. Take it to this point, delete this, and then replace the name and the job title. And I'm going to delete this too. Yeah, cool. So I want the spacing between this and this should be, also I'll add an auto layout to it and make it 16. I'll do the same to this. I'll set it, add an auto layout to both of them, set it to 16. So let's do that for this. Should be 16 as well. Add an auto layout and set it to be 16. So I can call this a container, copy the text, and I could do that here as well. Set this to be a container, and I could do that here as well as set this to be a container. So right now I have several containers. So the spacing between this container and this person, I want it to be 64. So once I select this, I can make the spacing to be 64. Now that will give me the height, which is around, this height is around 400. So let's say we make every height 400, right? And we'll make the spacing to be auto. Great. So we have this. Now the next thing we're going to do is to add colors. So for this, I'm going to add the gray, light gray color. And this as well, I'm going to add the light gray color, fill color, light gray. Then for this, I'm going to select everything that's in here. I'm going to change the color to the light gray, then change the whole background of the stuff to black. And we'll have something like this. And let's change this to light gray. Cool. Now the spacing between these, I could see we're using 7. We could make this 16. So we'll have a breathing space there. So let's do that for this as well. The spacing here should be 16. And the spacing here as well should be 16. Now we can add what we call corner radius as well to this. So I'm going to set the corner radius for each of these. Let's say we're going to use 24 for the corner radius. Great. And to make the middle one stand out, which is the selected one, we can add a drop shadow to it. And let's say we add an effect of a shadow. The X should be -4, the Y should be 4, the blur should be 60. Then the spread, because we need to check this to be clip, and then we can make the spread, let's say 10. And the color as well, we can choose the color of this. And then the opacity, we can make it 25, or we can make it 30. See how it looks like. Really cool. Pops out with a shadow. Now I can select this too and add auto layout to it. And I will set the spacing to be 48. I think that's what we used for this. Let's confirm that, 48, right? Then the spacing between these should be 112. Great. So now we have the testimonial section done. The next section we're going to work on is the footer section. What do you think about the design so far? Interesting and lovely. Now for the footer section, we have something like this. So we're going to pick the available badge, which is also going to be on the footer. And we have some copies. So I'm going to paste this down here and bring it here. And the copies we had for the footer, we have the let's talk this and this and this. I'm going to copy this. And I'll paste this here. So bring down the copies. So I want to take this design of the wireframe closer so that I can see what we're designing. I push the style guide a bit, get the footer to match up with this. So we have the let's talk text. So I'm going to set up let's talk to be heading 2. because we want it to be very big. The color to be black. And I'll take this up and I'm going to reduce this, make it center line. And I want the let's talk to like kind of stand out. Let's talk about your project. Can make it one line and I'll bring about your project down. Yeah, I'll have something like this. Sorry, I'll have something like this. Then we'll have a subtext. The subtext should be medium, or let's make it big. And I'm going to bring it this way and make it also center the line. The color right now, we could use this, we could use the light gray or gray. Then this, I'm going to work on this later. So let's take this down a bit here. And we'll have this here and then this beneath it. I'm going to take this down a bit. And I'm going to increase this a bit here. So I'm going to add these two into an auto layout, and the spacing between them, I'm going to set it 0, or let's just set it 8. And I'm going to select this at the top as well. And I'll make it, let's say 32, or let's use 24. Cool. I'll make sure it's centered align. Then the next thing is the button. I'm going to first add this into a frame. So I'm going to use frame here. So just drag a frame on top and you have the frame. So I'm going to give a fill of black. So now these texts are going to change the color to white, I think, yeah, white, yeah. And I'm going to change this color. Let's change it to the gray. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. We can change the color of the text to white. And we could add the latest glass effect on this. So we could set this to glass. And let's do some frosts. Let's detach this and also reduce the opacity. I'll have a cool glass effect here. Next, I think we'll need the like stock button. So I'm going to take the button here. Let's take this. And I'm going to come in here and paste it here. So set it this way. And I'm going to remove the icon and set this to let's talk. I'm going to increase the size of the width of this. Next is the icons. So we have the icons here. You should have each of this icon. So I'm going to copy this icon. I'm going to paste them in here and add an auto layout to them. Spacing, I can make it 8. So we have the icons here. So I'm going to set these buttons with this, add another auto layout, and we're going to make it 32. And this, add another auto layout. So I use most of the time auto layout to create spacing, 48. So I'm going to drag this down. And now we're going to add, let's add a line. So I'm going to take this line from this point, draw the line, holding my shift to this point. So I'll give this line a color. Let's use the white color, or let's say the gray. Yeah. So I'll turn on the grid so I can snap the line to the grid. And I'll do the same for this as well. Cool. So I'll turn off the grid system. And we have this, really nice. So at the top, I want it to be 112 spacing, right? And the grid snapping should be around 64. The line should be around 64. Cool. I can take this down a bit. So the last thing we have is copyright. Color should be, let's say the size should be small and the color should be white. And we could do the same thing for this as well, and for this as well. So we'll change the color to be white, and then we can change the text to be small. Add auto layer to this too. The spacing should be like say 16. I'll make the weight and height to hug content. And we'll snap it this way and make it, let's say it should be 24 close to the line. And let's do the same thing here. Turn on the grid, so we could say 12, snap to the grid, should be top 24. And button should be like around 112, so we're going to keep reducing this till we get to button 112. Great. And here we have the footer, really nice and easy to build. So I'm going to snap the whole design this way. So here we have the design. So one other thing is that the naming, you could see some places that still have frame 1, frame 2, and the rest of that. To make my design really, really fast, I could just use the AI feature on Figma. So select this, click on the AI feature. And here I have, I think, let's say, rename layers. And Figma will automatically start renaming each of the layers. You see the footers have been renamed very well. So let's look at the footer. You see it's footer info. This is text. This is line. This is contact section. You see availability badge. Everything has been renamed properly. And even this, I think, testimonial, containers, these two will be renamed properly and make sure that everything is renamed properly. So that is it about the design. And if you really enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video to people you think they will be interested in this video. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how to create this prototype, which I just did. Make sure you turn up your notification bell so you don't miss out when I create that design. And that is it from me. Bye.